Hi, this is Kayla Thompson, and I am in Group 4, and I'm going to be talking about some topics from our reading for Week 4. I'm going to talk about something that I got out of our reading of the article, The Foundations of Community Research. And to begin with, there were two kind of interesting and important points that were brought up in the reading that I want to touch upon before I talk about my topic. And that is, first of all, that reality is what we believe it to be. And so therefore, reality is not something that is defined. It's something that's interpreted. And what we perceive as reality is going to be different than what someone else perceives as reality. And so as researchers, we really need to understand that, because we can't just assume that everyone has the same reality. And second of all, they brought up the point in the reading that our values and perceptions kind of shape the way that we see the world. That these things impact our reality because they're going to play a part in what reality means to us. The values and perceptions lead into our vision of reality, and that we create reality based on our values. And also that these values can change, and as they change, the reading pointed out that there might be some resistance to the change, because we kind of have this rooted belief that our beliefs and our values, our sense of reality is the correct way. And as these things change, it's kind of a new thing, and it takes some adjustment to kind of move our ideals. And so understanding that we all have different ideas of what reality means, understanding that our values and perceptions are all different, and so these all play into the research, that everyone is going to be different. And then going into the reading a little bit further, I'm going to talk about how the author discusses the fact that research is done with people, not on them. And I think that that's really important to remember, because they're not just subjects that we're studying for no purpose. This article talked about community research and how community research was doing something good for an oppressed group, trying to bring about change. And I think that something that was important that was brought up was that as researchers, we have to be willing to share the power. Just because we're the ones doing the research does not mean that we have all of the power, and that we need to not only acknowledge the groups that we're doing this research on, but also include them in decision making, include them in the research being represented, allow them to be a part of that, because as our reading showed us, if we don't do that, then we're kind of leading them towards further oppression. That we shouldn't just consider it, we're doing something for you, and so what we have to say is the say-all. Going back to the fact that we have different values and perceptions, understanding that the oppressed group has their own values and perceptions, and that we really need to acknowledge those when we're doing our research. And so including them in that process of our research. And a question was posed from the reading, and that question was, how do we put our values into action in the ways that we conduct our community research? And I think that when we conduct this research, once again, we have to have an understanding of our biases and our values and how these things impact what our reality is. And understanding that this perception of reality is just our perception, and there are other perceptions. And also, once again, allowing that oppressed group to play a part in it. Understanding the importance of developing strong relationships with them, forming a trust so that they are able to communicate freely with us, so that we can better understand what their perceptions are, and being open to those different perceptions, not having the mindset that what you think is the only right answer, welcoming other views and other opinions. It also stated that in our reading that the researcher would want to create a participative environment, so once again, supporting them. And these are things that are going to take a long-term commitment. I think that oftentimes we kind of see research as a short-term thing, find the answers and be done with it. But we need to kind of think of this as having an impact. that our goal is to kind of lead this group towards social change. And if we're not doing that, then we're kind of failing as researchers. We're failing that group that we have taken on, and in taking them on to research them, it's kind of suggesting that we are going to be there for them, that we're going to support them through this. So we can't just abandon them just because what we believe our research has done. I think research is kind of ongoing. It's not something that just comes to an end point. And the reading also mentioned that we needed to think strategically about how we're going to disseminate the information that we get from our research. It's not just something that we publish and be done with. We want to get it into the right hands, once again, so that change can happen. So I think that understanding not just your audience, but what it is that you want to get out of this. Whether it's you want this to be public, whether it's it needs to go to a certain governmental group, taking the steps to kind of figure out what it is that you want to happen and making sure that you enable that to happen, that there's the opportunity, and that you are taking the time and the effort to achieve what needs to be achieved. And with that community research, understanding that you kind of have the responsibility to be having a positive impact in the suppressed group that you're researching. And I think that we kind of have an obligation that we forget about when we do our research. When I was in my public health classes, we talked about the Tuskegee research that was done, and how we were more or less infecting a group of African Americans when they believed that they were getting treatment, and really it was the research was to see what would happen if these African Americans were infected. And I think that that's a good example of researchers having the mindset that they are doing the research on the people and not with them. The people in the study didn't know what was going on. They didn't know that they were infected until many years later. But it also shows that researchers can forget their obligation to do good. I think research should have a purpose. We should have an ultimate goal of what we want to get out of our research. And so I think it's really important, some of the points that were brought up in the reading this week, as far as respecting and welcoming the participation of those that we're doing research on. So I found this week's reading to be really interesting, and I look forward to watching everyone else's videos and seeing the different things that you took out of the reading.